Deadline, Epilogue. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this, that my brother could deliver his own address, Cody says, looking over the darkened bleachers from the podium on the riser at the center of the Trout High School gymnasium. As you know, we buried him a week ago. I want to thank you on behalf of my family for your amazing kindness. He smiles. The last thing he said to me was, "This dying ain't for sissies." He shakes his head. My brother was no sissy. He unfolds a sheet of notebook paper. "If you close your eyes," he says, "and picture me pint-sized, it'll be like he's right here." Soft laughter drifts up from the audience. Cody reads. To my fellow graduates and to the citizens of Trout. My brother is probably pretty nervous reading this, so laugh at his/my jokes, but not all the sweat pouring off his nervous brow. That was the first joke. I performed a kind of forced experiment this year, one I wouldn't have chosen. Last summer, Doc Wagner informed me that I had a potentially terminal disease and that I should start aggressive treatment right away. Doc took me to a specialist who told me things looked bad, so I decided to forego the treatment and give myself a reasonable shot at living a meaningful life in 1 year. Because I wanted that year to be normal, I chose to tell no one. That was a big mistake. If you don't learn anything else from my death, learn to tell the truth. The first time I heard the saying, "Live every day like you're going to live forever, and live every day like it's going to be your last," I thought it was one of those unsolvable story problems from my 5th grade arithmetic book. But it turns out to be the truest thing about my year. When I took risks like this was my last chance, and at the same time kept it in my head that actions have consequences not only for me, but for everyone I touched forever. I made my best decision. I did get a lot of help with that, by the way. It took me a while to understand, but in the end, I did my best. I loved like I had never loved, cried like I had never cried, lived through days of terror and days of joy, days of utter satisfaction and days of shame. I shared glory on the football field I would have never experienced had I not known my fate, because I wouldn't have had the nerve to try. Risk. Many of you may remember me only as the pain-in-the-butt Malcolm X referendum guy, and though my early poll numbers are dangerously low, I'm hoping my death will cause enough guilt that you will name a street Malcolm X Avenue. Do it. I spent the year anticipating my impending demise. There were times I was paralyzed with fear, but in the end, I'm glad I knew. Another of our classmates, Sooner Cowens, is also gone with no warning. And I have to say I'm grateful I had the chance to make my peace. Rest assured that by the time you hear this, I have already found him, told him he is loved and missed, which he already knows. That we are out here throwing the ball around, our earthly differences dwarfed by the vast and glorious universe, creating 8-man plays so clever and intricate that we could kick Timberline's butt on 10 Friday afternoons out of 10. So graduating seniors, remember, you can keep us alive on earth with your acts you perform in our name. Decide for yourself how to do that for Sooner, but for me, I want my Malcolm X Avenue. And by the way, Sooner says his street would be the right one to carry that name. Drive carefully. Cody folds the paper and wipes his eyes. In a light applause turns thunderous. Cody Wolf and Dallas Suzuki jog easily around the Reservoir Road exactly 2 weeks following their high school graduation. Joe Henry Suzuki rides ahead of Dallas in a jogger stroller, the wind blowing his fine hair straight back. Your son, huh? Cody said. Yeah, isn't he beautiful? Yeah, isn't I beautiful? Joe Henry says. That you are, big boy, Cody says back. That you are. Stick your fingers in your ears and go, ah, for as long as you can. Joe Henry bites. Over his nose, Cody says, it took a lot of guts to up and tell the world. I mean, your uncle and everything. It was killing me, Dallas says. I bet. Joe Henry demonstrates powerful lungs. Ah! You gonna be able to play the volleyball and take care of him too? I'll find a way, I have to. No volleyball scholarship, no school. No school, the little prince here gets to grow up in a double wide. Can't believe we both got scholarships to the same place, Cody says, through increasingly heavy breathing. Listen, I've been thinking. Why don't we get a place together? No strings. Between us, I bet we could cover the basis for this little snot factory. Dallas still breathes easily, almost guiding as she pushes Joe Henry towards the bluff overlooking the reservoir. I'll think about it. They run another 100 yards. I think Ben would like that. They run in silence, safe for Cody's gasp for oxygen, to the top of the bluff, where Dallas takes Ben's iPad from the pocket on the back of the stroller, finds song 116, listens a moment, and hands Cody one of the earphones. So I will climb the highest hill, and I will watch the rising sun, and pray that I won't feel the chill till I'm too old to die young. Let me watch my children grow to see what they become. Lord, don't let the cold wind blow till I'm too young to die old. Till I'm too old to die young. They watch till the sun sits atop a western peak and then turn and head back for town. Cody is hugely appreciative that the rest of the run is mostly downhill. They jog easily past the Cohen's house, dark but for the blue glow of the television screen through the living room window, at the end of the street, beneath a homemade plywood street sign reading Malcolm X Avenue, they split and jog their separate ways home.